My name is Troy LaRaviere. I am an educator and progressive candidate for mayor of Chicago. The trial of police officer Jason Van Dyke has begun, and as you all know, he is on trial for the murder of Laquan McDonald. This trial gives us an opportunity to reflect and to think deeply about this city's long history of police brutality against people of color and African American people in particular. It gives us an opportunity to reflect and think deeply about the larger history of oppression, exploitation, and discrimination in Chicago. And most importantly, it gives us a chance to commit or recommit ourselves to establishing justice and equity for all people. Over the next few weeks and months, I'll be talking about the need for reform of the police department and reform of the government that controls the police department. But today, I want to talk about Laquan McDonald himself. When I listen to people who knew Laquan McDonald, when they talk about Laquan, they talk about him as if he had this light, that he had this great sense of humor, that he loved to make people laugh, that he loved to dance, that he had this potential and he could realize this potential if he only had the help that he needed. His friends and family loved him, and now they miss him. Laquan McDonald was valued. But Laquan wasn't valued by our media, and he wasn't valued by the people who run our city. The way they talk about him reminds me of the difference between how they talked about people who suffered in the crack epidemic of the 80s and people who suffer from the opioid epidemic today. You know, the crack epidemic was mostly affecting black communities, and the people who were involved in it were framed as potential criminals and menaces to society. But today we have an opioid epidemic that's affecting predominantly white populations, and they're being framed as they should be, as people who need help, as people who are ill. And so when I see how Laquan McDonald is framed, they talk about his time in the child welfare system and his drug use and his minor property offenses, and frame him the same way they frame people who suffered from in the crack epidemic of the 1980s, as if he's some potential menace to society instead of what he is or what he was, a young boy with limitless potential who needed some help. Our society devalued the life of Laquan McDonald long before he ever crossed paths with Jason Van Dyke. 30 years ago, I dedicated my life to helping young people realize their God-given potential. But what I've seen in those 30 years is a city that continuously fails our young people through discrimination, through exploitation, and through neglect. Let this trial be a turning point in the life of our city. This has been the first in a series of reflections on Laquan McDonald, his murder, our police department and the government that controls it, and the Jason Van Dyke trial. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the comments section, and thank you for watching.